started. Okay, so today's agenda, CBOR BIS again, status update and progress. Let me post the Etherpad and also open it. I'm a bit slow today.
Oh, that's very slow.
Yeah. Still loading. Testing my patience. Should we try the...
What's so hard about Etherpad?
Why is it so slow though? Does it work for you?
No.
Okay.
Still waiting.
Okay, let's use this one maybe then. Which needs to be loading.
Does that even work?
Sorry?
Does that work?
Well, I hope so. Does it not?
It doesn't seem to behave much different from the one before.
Not me, and I can see the gym is also connected. Ah.
I am not getting any content.
You're not? Okay. Well, I guess I'll
Okay,
take
it loaded for
notes.
me.
How about this?
I have content now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Etherpad is really slow. Let's try to see.
Can we use HackMD?
How do you do this? Do you have to sign
Send the
in?
link.
I'm getting packet loss on pings to that address.
To Etherpad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's use the HackMD link. Use the edit.
Yeah, that's
Amounts of packet loss. That looks really bad.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna copy paste the agenda. This is from 20th of February. No, 29th of January, this one.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
It's fine. I cannot copy paste the whole thing.
Better?
Better. Thank you. Okay. Carsten, you can tell us what's the status.
Yeah, the status is that I think I have broken the login on number 63. So I proposed some text, and the text essentially states facts. It's not really making any recommendation. It just talks about what's true. And we probably need to discuss whether that's enough or whether we actually need to be more prescriptive here.
Mm-hmm.
So Laurent already sent a review. I'm not entirely sure that I can take a direction from this review because it says two things that don't really agree with each other. So you seem to say that all decoders should always detect and reject duplicates. And then you say, do we want to really exclude decoders that don't do that?
So, at least what I was thinking is, or what I understood from that text is, there's a difference between, one behavior is that as soon as you detect a duplicate, you error, you report the fact that you detected a duplicate and refuse to go on.
Yes.
So that is we all agree that's good, reasonable behavior. And some generic decoders will do this and should do this, and protocols shouldn't rely on this, and that's in some ways it's an ideal case. But another behavior is when you detect a duplicate, you don't error, you just take first, take last, or take random, or some other, rule. So there's no error. You're just still doing duplicate detection, but you're just passing on the non-duplicates.
Yeah, that's the interesting, the not so interesting case, because if you are actually detecting a duplicate, you might as well act on that. I think you are now talking about the implementations that do not detect duplicates, but just handle them, and handle them by losing the other entries with the same key.
Yeah. So
There's no duplicate detection going on. All that happens is those other entries are lost.
I would call that, I am calling that duplicate detection, because you do have to detect that it's a duplicate.
No.
It's just, oh, I see.
For
Okay.
instance, an implementation that
Well, no.
does search from the beginning and returns the first match. This is inefficient, but it might be appropriate for a constrained device. That would process a map with a duplicate entry by returning the first entry, but would never detect that there are ones behind it. And similarly, my implementations actually store entries into a map, and since the map doesn't tell me whether there previously was something in that entry, it just gets lost. There's no detection going on.
Okay. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Let me say it this way. The problem with any kind of things, any kind of implementation where you lose or don't pass on, you try to implement take first or take last, is that I don't think we can specify that it should always be take first or always take last.
Right.
We can't specify that. So it's some implementations are going to do it one way and others are going to do it another. And if we say that one of these kinds of behaviors is okay, then how do protocol designers know what to rely on? I mean, will they rely on take first or take last? That seems a really bad situation to put protocol designers in and implementers in.
Right. That's why there is text that clarifies that you cannot do that.
So the implement. Okay.
And
Yeah.
there's even text that tells you that generic encoders that lose stuff are not applicable in all situations. So whether you can consider that okay or not okay depends on whether you are in that situation or not.
Yeah. Okay.
So all this probably can be said clearer than the text currently is. But I think the basic summary of the discussion is pretty much what we discussed on the mailing list.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I see. I see. I see. I understand the intent of your text now. That third option is the one where you don't know what the encoder is going to, or what the decoder is going to return. Sometimes it might return. Some decoders might do first, some might do last, some might do random, some might change. So you can't, in that third option, you have no, I mean, I suppose even in that third option, you have no way of relying on knowing what the decoder is going to do. I mean, there is a class of behavior of a decoder that is not covered by those three options that it's very unlikely to occur, but might occur, which is that sometimes it passes duplicates on and sometimes it eliminates duplicates. That
would be covered by the third option.
Okay, it would be.
I think so. I'm not sure I phrased this correctly, but that was the idea.
Okay, okay.
Let me check the phrasing. Yeah, the third option said lose some entries with duplicate keys. It doesn't say that you have to lose everything to be in that third option.
Ah, yes, okay. But the EG.
Well, that's an example.
Yeah, okay.
But we have to make sure this is clear. So you have any suggestion how to make this less easy to misunderstand, that would be useful.
Okay. So I was thinking those decoders can only be used in situations where the protocol is not sensitive to duplicates. That would be the condition, not reliance on the encoder being correct or the encoded CBOR being not tampered with.
Well, yeah, I'm not so sure that that's actually true, because there are many applications for CBOR that happen within the security domain, and there you actually usually or often are in a position where you can rely on that. And I wouldn't want to exclude those implementations just because they cannot be used on the open internet. So for my implementation, I actually plan to put in a non-strict flag, for which I need to find a name, that says the existing behavior is okay, and if you don't set that, then you get full checking and a performance hit.
Yeah.
So I think that the last sentence of the bullet list is quite explicit in pointing out that that decoders that don't check have a limited area of application. And I think that's pretty much what we took out of the Singapore meeting.
Well, there's protocols that don't have an issue with duplicates. And then there's environments or situations where you, at least you think you can rely on correct encoding. I don't know. I'm actually so I think the protocol part might be missing, and the any text about situations where the encoder can be relied on should be. I would put a lot of big warnings on that, because it's a classic area where people get, implementers make assumptions that are not true. Like, okay, it's behind the firewall. Okay, the firewall includes a company of 100,000 people. Yeah. So therefore it's okay. Yeah, I don't, that doesn't seem like an okay scenario to, to trust the encoder. So, I mean, I guess the words I would pick would be things like good practice would assumes input is always hostile, but some scenarios, in some scenarios, you might consider the input not to be hostile, but you should be really cautious about that.
Kirsten, I pasted some text in the chat window. I think we may want to have text along this lines included.
Yeah, that's certainly something that needs to be explained.
I think that's the only real problem I have with the text is it's not sufficient about telling you what can go wrong.
But my attempt with the settings, these generic decoders can only be used and so on, was to be very specific on what can be done and cannot be done. Hmm. Well, I like your text, so I'm pasting that in.
Yeah, I think that text is a good addition. What about text that requests decoders to declare which of these three options that they have implemented?
Yeah, that was kind of implicit, but we probably need to make this explicit.
if you're going to keep the thing about scenarios, I don't know, about situations where the encoder can be relied upon, I think you should expand that to where the encoder and entire transport infrastructure, or it's not just the encoder here, it's the man in the middle, you know.
So I just replaced it by data source and transfer.
Yeah, and e.g., no men in the middle.
The fun case, of course, is when the man in the middle is yourself. Because you load it up, you write it back out, and you change the order.
Well, changing the order is not a problem if things were invalid before, they will be invalid afterwards, and if they were valid before, they will be valid afterwards.
But if things were invalid before, they may be valid afterwards.
Yes.
My question is this a formulation problem we're having now, or is it even deeper than that? So are we disagreeing on the content? Because I'm not sure at this point. I thought we had some agreement at IETF 106.
Yeah, and that was refined in the mailing list discussion we had afterwards.
I can't remember exactly what was said in IETF 106, but I, in general, agree with the content here.
Okay.
With the some of the improvements we're discussing here, I think that
Are mostly
yeah, mostly aligned up here.
okay.
I'm basically happy with what is here.
Good.
I mean, this lines up with the comments, many of the comments I've made on the list too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Another thing maybe that might be helpful to add here is I don't know, you know, whether there's whether protocols, a protocol design, something about protocol design. You design a protocol to tolerate duplicates or not. That's not.
There is no way in CBOR to really tolerate them. I'm not sure how that would work. By the way, I just pushed a version with Jim's text and a few more changes from the discussion.
So a protocol that every map entry is a addition or deduction to your bank account would not tolerate duplicates. A protocol to report the current air temperature probably would tolerate duplicates.
But such a protocol would give half the people the wrong answer with duplicates.
The temperature one?
Yeah, I mean, if the temperature had different values, then half the people get the wrong answer.
Yeah, maybe, depending on what the point of the protocol was and how those duplicates, are getting inserted.
And what I can and how reliant I was on getting the right answer for the temperature.
I'm sorry, say that again.
And how reliant I am on getting the right answer for the temperature. If I was going to turn on the air conditioning or turn off the air conditioning based on that, we are all of a sudden now in a situation where you may not be tolerant. If you have an application which is tolerant, then you're going to want to be in the second bucket because you're going to want to know all of them.
Yeah, that's why I didn't even address that, because I'm not sure what kinds of tolerant we actually would have, and I wouldn't want to design a protocol in such a way that it has elaborate mechanisms to cope with something that is invalid in the first place.
So generic decoders that are not in class 1 or class 2, the first two bullet points, have really limited applicability.
Yes.
Yeah, no min in the middle. And
I didn't put in the term man in the middle because attacker, I think, is good enough.
I don't know. It has to say, I think it has to say, is not possible if the transport or the encoder is under control of the attacker. It's the transport that we really care about here. Most likely the encoder is going to be okay, and the sender originator of the CBOR is going to be okay. I think it's the man in the middle.
In my cases, I'm more worried about the originator than the man in the middle. But to me, the encoder kind of implies the man in the middle case. It's whoever did the last encoding.
Yeah, maybe. So the third to last line already talks about data source and transfer, and maybe the second to last line should just say data instead of encoder.
That's better.
Encoding might also work.
Yeah, that
No, I don't like that.
narrower than desired. Okay, so my plan would be to wait a little bit until we have more thought a little bit more about this and have reviews, and then to ask Paul to merge this. And we also have another pull request. Number 165 that has been around for a while, and I think I managed to put in the issues from number 160, from issue number 160 in there as well, using some of the text that Peter Oxel had proposed or had written. So that's maybe one other thing that I would like people to look at. And then we could merge those two pull requests and are essentially stuck with the clerical pull requests, like checking MIME registrations and checking the list of changes and so on. And when that is done, we can put out the next version and do a working plus call, I think.
It sounds good. Yeah, no answer from Jeffrey. Or
Well, he had 45 minutes before this meeting, so.
no, but I mean, I thought about the before the last changes. You had already requested.
So the situation is that those points were kind of peripheral to his points. So maybe he simply doesn't have that much of an opinion
Okay.
about them. So I don't blame him.
No, I kind of remember you last interim. You said that you had reached out to him. That's why I was wondering. Okay.
Well, I hope he will respond to the working plus call.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll be waiting for the next update then. I think the discussion was useful for progressing or for improving the text.
Yes.
Um, I don't know if there is anything else. Any other comments that people who are here think that should be solved before working group plus call?
If there is, please do raise an issue on GitHub.
Okay. Anything else? Let me just go through the points from last meeting. Still waiting on Jeffrey's approval. And this is done. Floating point related. So that's good. Request for map validity, okay. Lawrence to check PR 159 and notify customer mailing list. Was 159.
Yeah, I haven't done it yet, but I will. I keep promising.
Okay, if I keep it in the minutes so we remember.
Sure.
Oh, hi, Michael.
Hi, I joined about 3 minutes ago, so I have no idea what you're doing.
I think we are wrapping up.
I know, figured that out.
Yes.
So the main discussion point was about this hard issue of map key uniqueness. And there is new
Oh.
text in the pull request that everybody is asked to look at.
I posted the link to the minutes. Working group, let's go after next submission. Sorry?
HackMD. Oh, we're using HackMD instead of Etherpad. Wonderful.
Well, the
Also-
Etherpad is having problems.
Oh, okay. Anyway, HackMD is cool.
My students have essentially pushed me into Hack and using HackMD exclusively. So it's really great.
And reach out to implementers. Duplicate key. Okay, that was a new issue 167, which is 67 was closed.
Yeah, I think
Okay, default encoding, tag or untag.
that's now in 168. That's closed too. Who closed that?
I read the text in the pull request, I think, and I think I'm okay with it.
Mhm.
I said at the last IETF that I thought we should have gone a specific way, but I was in the rough, so that's okay.
Thanks. Yeah, and we got new issue 170. Let's take a look at 167 and 170.
Please consider allowing CBOR null as a valid content for tag number 0 and 1. What are tag number 0 and 1?
There are different ways of specifying dates and times. I don't know why they just don't want to put a null instead of the tag value. Because this would basically say you want to do it. You always want to have null as an option on a tag. What happens if I don't have that MIME value there? Well, I have the tag there and then null, right?
Sybase is like it when they can specify null instead of a other value. What does it mean? However, it still fails to satisfy the protocol requirements for always encoding tag number 0 and 1, which could lead to compatibility problems. What does that mean?
Well, it's you can create problems by making requirements in your protocol that then turn out to be bad. And one such requirement may be to always have a tag number 1 somewhere. And then if it turns out you have to be able to encode undefined values, then you cannot fulfill this protocol requirement to always have a tag number 1, unless we change tag number 1. And I don't think we want to do this at this point.
Oh,
So my solution would be to fix the protocol.
The protocol meaning the user of CBOR.
No, the text that says there must be a tag number 1 there.
Which is the user of CBOR.
Yes.
Which is one of the users, but not the one that has
So,
the
some user says there must be a time and 0 or 1 in my thing somewhere.
Yeah.
And they can't accept that if there is no time, that there should be no tag, and therefore they want to put an initial in a null instead.
So this is well known from certificates, which have exactly the same problem. In certificates, you must have expiry times.
Right.
And the convention is to put in an expiry time in 9,999 in the year
To mean
999.
infinite or not specified. Right.
well, the problem in certificates, you know where the field is. You don't rely on the data type to know which data item is which. So certificates just don't have the ability to put null in. But this problem is different. This is where you're relying on the type of the field to figure out which field is which. It's some sort of an implicit thing, like typing. So I think there is definitely something that you can't do in CBOR here, because null and undefined are excluded from tags 0 and 1. I don't know that this is a critical thing to be able to do in CBOR. You might be able to work around it. Maybe your protocol is a little bit bigger because of that. But it does seem like there's something you can't do because of this. And
Well, I mean, CRLs, the expiry time is an optional field. You don't, I don't see any problems with making it an optional. You know that in the tag what it's supposed to be.
So yeah. So in the certificate issue, the issue is that the expires on was a mandatory field, and so we had to put a stupid value in. If it had been an optional field, then that could be okay. So let's say someone had a map and they had expires on. Could they not, instead of having a 0 or 1 with a null value, couldn't they put a null, just a CBOR null in? So it's not tagged 0 or 1, it's just a null.
I think that'll work for lots of protocols, but I think there are some protocols where it might not work.
I agree. There's some protocols that might not work. Do we have exemplars right now? In other words, are there people we can't fix except by doing this? I bet not.
There's probably a fix other than this. I'm going to have to sit and come up with the examples, but I mean, this would be an incompatible change to type 0 and 1, wouldn't it?
So who is the requester? It's Montgomery Edwards.
Yes.
superset 448. His login is X448 because it's definitely a pseudonym.
Yes.
And one wonders if he's dealing with a certificate issue itself. um,
Yeah. So I think I will write a response to this issue, and the thing we need to decide is whether we add some explanatory text to the definitions of tag 0 and 1. But I don't think that we actually want to change the definition of tag number 0 and 1 to allow these. We have other tags like 1001 that would allow that.
I mean, this would be true for like every tag, right?
Yes, at least many of them.
Okay, Mike just commented.
Yes. And I'll send a comment too.
what was the other issue that you wanted us to look at?
So the one that we had last meeting was 167, which Montgomery Edwards closed, I guess, because
Well, it's exactly the same issue.
so he just opened a new in proposal. And the other one, okay, yeah, 168 was closed because 167 or yeah, basically also related. Mhm. No, what Karsten was asking people to look at was the PR 165, right, Karsten?
Yes.
Which is the other open pull request.
Yeah, and it's pretty simple. So I hope that we can reach agreement on that quickly.
I used a
Yes.
C compiler in the 1980s that didn't have floating point. And after all those years, I find I almost never use floating point. It's like I'm a can't. Like, wow, we have floating point numbers now. I have to remind myself that they're not new.
Okay.
That's pretty much the decision between using a Cortex M3 or a Cortex M4.
That's the hardware, but the compiler can add floating point support in or not. I know one of the issues that, I mean, when I was at Qualcomm, one of in the TEE, there was no floating point just because no one had got around to hooking up the compiler and the libraries to support it. It just wasn't a priority until things like fingerprints came along.
Yeah, I think that that's one of the reasons why CBOR BIS is a little bit more careful about throwing all kinds of numbers into the same bucket, and is maintaining a clear distinction between integers and floats.
Yeah, that seems like a good idea.
Okay,
There is nothing else. I think we're done.
yeah, we could mention for those who haven't noticed that we have a new RFC,
Yes, right.
and there is another one that is just reaching auth 48 done.
Yes. So 8742 CBOR sequences
Yes.
is the new one. So good job. Very, very quickly and smoothly done. And now we're waiting for CBOR array.
Yes.
Great.
So I gave my okay. That is not yet recorded in the auth 48 page, but probably just because people haven't
Very soon, yes.
woken up yet.
I'm gonna stop the recording now.
Yes.
And